My wife threw my clothes on the floor and kicked me out of my own house because I asked her freeloading brother to finally contribute. She expected me to crawl back. Instead, I let her learn exactly what life looks like without the man who paid for everything. Hello, Reddit I plus here. That day began like any other, yet it became the day everything I believed about my marriage shattered. My name is Andreas, 37 years old, a project supervisor who spent the last decade grinding through long hours so my wife and I could build a stable life. I never imagined I would come home one afternoon to find my own belongings tossed across the hardwood floor like trash that had overstayed its welcome. But that is exactly what happened. I still remember the way the hallway smelled faintly of lavender cleaner, the same scent my wife used every weekend, mixed with the unfamiliar bitterness of rejection. My neatly folded clothes, the ones I'd left in the bedroom just that morning, were scattered near the door. Socks, shirts, even the jacket I wore every winter, all piled carelessly as if swept out with a broom. And there she was, Talia, 34, the woman I married because her laugh used to brighten even the worst days. She stood, with her arms locked tightly across her chest, her jaw clenched hard enough to make her cheek tremble slightly. "You are not staying here tonight." Her voice was sharp, cold. "Find somewhere else. You need to think about how you treat my brother." Her brother. That was where all of this began. I had asked him, a man of 29 named Daryl, to contribute something to the house he had been living in for 9 months. Not money necessarily, just anything. Groceries, chores, effort, presents, respect. He provided none. I stared at the pile of clothes at my feet while her words carved themselves into my memory. That morning, I had left for work believing we were a team, a married couple navigating life together. By evening, I was being told to get out of the home my salary paid for. For a moment, I just stood there, suspended between disbelief and anger. I tried to speak, but my mouth felt dry. When I finally turned my head, I saw him on the living room sofa. Daryl reclined there like he owned the place, one leg thrown over the other, a bowl of chips in his hand, crumbs on the cushion, the remote trapped under his thigh. His eyes met mine, and the slightest curl of satisfaction touched the corner of his lips. That was when I understood. He wanted this. He wanted me out. I swallowed hard. "Fine," I said quietly, though my heart felt like it was cracking. "I will go. But remember, this is not finished." I gathered enough clothes to fill a duffel bag, threw in my charger, my work ID, the bare essentials, and walked out. I did not slam the door. I did not explode. My silence felt louder than shouting. Inside, however, something was unraveling fast. I checked into a small motel on the outskirts of the city. The room was dim, the air stale with the scent of industrial cleaner. The sheets were scratchy, the lamp flickered like it was struggling to stay alive, and the bathroom door squeaked like a dying hinge every time I closed it. Still, it was quiet, quiet enough for me to hear my thoughts, and her words kept returning, circling me like vultures. "Think about how you treat my brother." I replayed everything. Every grocery bill I covered, every late night I spent fixing things around the house. Every morning I left early so they could sleep in. Every time Daryl left his dirty dishes on the counter. Every month Talia insisted he just needed more time to get back on his feet. By dawn, I was done thinking. I knew exactly what I needed to do. When the sun rose, pale and weak behind the thin motel curtains, I got up, got dressed, and drove back home. Not to fight, not to beg, but to take the first step in a decision I should have made long ago. The house was silent when I returned. The air felt heavier than usual. Talia was in the kitchen, stirring sugar into her coffee, as if nothing dramatic had happened just hours earlier. Daryl was slouched on the sofa again, his feet on my table, watching some morning show where people argued about nonsense. Neither of them even acknowledged me. I placed my bag on the floor. "We need to talk." Talia did not look up. "Talk about what? You left. That was your choice." I fought the urge to laugh. "My choice? You tossed my clothes into the hallway like I was a stranger passing through." Daryl smirked and muttered something under his breath. I continued, keeping my tone level. "We need to talk about us, about how your brother has been living here for almost a year without helping in any way. I pay every bill. I maintain everything. I cook half the meals. I am not asking for him to pay rent. I am asking for responsibility." Daryl scoffed loudly. "Respect is not something you buy with a paycheck. This is family. You do not charge family. Family contributes," I said. "Family does not drain people until they break." His grin widened. He wanted the conflict. He was waiting for it like a child, waiting for fireworks. Talia finally turned toward me. Her eyes had lost all softness. "Andreas, he is my brother. He has had a rough year. He needs space. I am not forcing him to do chores like some servant. You are blowing everything out of proportion." Rough year. Interesting choice of words for someone who spent 9 months binge-watching shows on my couch. This is not about chores, I said slowly. It is about fairness. If you have a problem, Daryl interjected, maybe you should be the one to leave. We are comfortable here. Those words burned hotter than any insult. Comfortable. In my house, with my wife, on my salary. Yet I stayed calm, because the realization I had reached earlier was too important. They thought they had already won. Maybe you are right, I said softly. Maybe I do need to step away and think. I picked up my bag again, left the house. But this time it was different. I had a plan. I drove until I reached a quiet lakeside park. Families strolled by, elderly people fed ducks, joggers stretched on the grass. Life continued normally around me, even though mine had turned upside down. I sat on a bench and opened my phone. I scrolled through pictures, birthdays, trips, holidays, moments I thought were real, moments I believed meant something. Daryl was in many of those photos, always there, always close, always attached to Talia like a shadow I had mistaken for harmless. My chest tightened as I realized the truth. Maybe this divide had begun long ago, slowly widening each time she defended him without hesitation. Each time I let things slide for the sake of peace. Maybe this explosion was not sudden, it was delayed. I opened my banking app. Every account was under my name. The mortgage, the utilities, the car, the insurance, the credit card. Every thread of our life was tied to my income. If they wanted to see what life was like without me, they would. I closed the app and leaned back. For the first time since the ordeal began, I felt something close to calm. Not revenge. Clarity. The next few days were strange but grounding. I rented a small apartment on the other side of town. A studio with uneven floors and peeling paint. Rain from the street leaked through a small crack in the window frame. But the space was quiet, peaceful, mine. During those days, I filed the necessary paperwork. I notified the mortgage company that I would be redirecting payments. I spoke to a lawyer about temporary separation. I arranged for utilities to be transferred out of my name. I even placed a freeze on the credit card that Talia frequently used for impulse shopping. Each move was precise, lawful, calm, quiet, and then I waited. 1 week later, the consequences reached them. Talia called me 8 times in one evening. I ignored the first 7, answered the 8th. Andreas, what is going on? The power was shut off this afternoon. And the internet. The car payment bounced. What did you do? I kept my voice measured. You wanted me out. I have stepped away. I have simply stopped paying for a place I no longer live in. There was a long silence, broken only by Daryl yelling in the background about the television not working. You cannot just leave us like this, she cried. Actually, I can. She tried, blaming, accusing, pleading, looping through every emotion she could reach. But nothing changed the truth. She had chosen her brother over our marriage. Now she was learning what that choice looked like in reality. A few days later, her tone changed entirely. She asked if we could talk. She suggested counseling. She said Daryl would start helping. She said she missed me, needed me, begged me to come home. But I had already understood something critical. Love is not kicking your partner out to protect someone's laziness. Loyalty is not choosing a grown man who refuses to lift a finger over the person who built your entire life with you. I told her I wished her well. Then I walked away. She sent messages for weeks, apologies, promises, regrets. She even showed up at my new apartment once, knocking until my neighbor threatened to call security. But the moment she threw my clothes on the floor, our marriage had ended. I simply took a little longer to realize it. And as for Daryl, without my income, he eventually had to find work, odd jobs, temporary positions, nothing stable, nothing comfortable. Life became far less convenient without me funding their existence. I rebuilt my life alone, piece by piece, slowly, steadily, in the quiet space of my new apartment. And little by little, I felt lighter, freer, better. Sometimes losing a home is how you find yourself again. And sometimes, someone throwing your clothes on the floor is the moment you finally pick up your dignity and walk toward a life where you no longer allow people to mistake your kindness for weakness. 2 months passed before I heard from Talia again. I was leaving the small cafe near my apartment when my phone buzzed with a message from an unfamiliar number. For a moment, I almost ignored it, until curiosity won. Andreas, it is me. Please do not block this number. I just need 5 minutes to explain. I stood on the sidewalk, watching people rush by, wondering what explanation she could possibly offer now. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet at a public park nearby. She arrived looking different from the woman who once threw my clothes on the floor. Her hair was pulled back hastily, Dark circles clung under her eyes, and her clothes looked wrinkled, as if she had not slept well in days. She sat across from me on a bench, hands trembling slightly. "Everything fell apart after you left," she said quietly. "The house is a mess. The bills keep piling up. The bank called about the mortgage, and Daryl, he is not helping. He said it is not his responsibility." I almost laughed, but I kept my voice calm. "You are surprised?" She shook her head, staring at the ground. I thought he would change. That he just needed support." "What he needed," I replied, "was accountability." She nodded slowly. Her eyes filled with something I had not seen in a long time. "Regret. I should not have kicked you out," she whispered. "I let him influence me. I made a terrible mistake." Her voice cracked, and for a moment, the weight of her choices settled between us like an invisible wall. "I am not asking you to come back," she added quickly. "I know I ruined that. I only wanted to apologize, truly apologize." For a long time, neither of us spoke. The wind rustled the leaves. Children laughed somewhere behind us. Life moved on around a conversation that had arrived too late. I finally stood. "Thank you for the apology. I hope you find your way." She lifted her eyes to me, hopeful for a moment, then resigned as she realized I meant every word, and that was the last time we spoke. A few weeks later, I heard through a mutual friend that Daryl had moved out of her house after an argument. She was left alone, facing the bills and responsibilities she once dismissed as trivial. Maybe it was the lesson she needed. Maybe it was the price of choosing comfort over partnership. As for me, I continued building a life beyond that chapter. A quieter life, yes, but one filled with a peace I had not felt in years. Sometimes endings arrive harshly. Sometimes they arrive with clothes thrown on a floor. But endings can also be beginnings for the people willing to grow from them. And that is exactly what I chose to do.